Well, it's great to meet you, and I'd like to begin our conversation with, if you look at the calendar, we're hitting that 4-year anniversary of the pandemic that we all lived through. And I'm curious,
Mhm.
how did you get through that time period and how did it change you?
I think one of the most important things that happened during that period was everyone, including ourselves, we got this 360 view of what was important, what should we prioritize, and did kind of an inventory of what resources we had available to make those times and those days actually something that we would either survive or we could look forward to. So in my personal experience was, I think it revisited the importance of family, revisited the importance of network, the importance of health, right? In prioritizing our time, our focus, our years on the things that really matter. So it was a time for family, for togetherness. I was privileged to be able to shelter in place with my children. I was privileged to be able to work remotely. So our lives and my life specifically was not greatly disrupted by the change from one-on-one services in person to remote services. I used to work for one of the biggest hospitals in New York State uh, for psychiatric treatment and psychological treatment. I worked for the Zachary Hillside Hospital, which was already part of the Northwell Health System, which is the biggest employer in New York State. We had a remarkable CEO, and he was quickly not only taking care of the patients, taking care of the employees, and all the families that created the Northwell system. So we're very privileged in that space. The importance of mental health. So I am a psychotherapist by trade. So the importance of mental health was, I think, really highlighted, and a lot of people that have been resistant or that have been, part of the stigmatized talks or that didn't know what was really the value. I think people really came to terms with the importance of not only taking care of your physical health, but also your mental health by pursuing services, by reading, by creating a structure of self-care and wellness for yourself. And that can show up in different ways for different people based on their coverage of insurance, their income, their cultural needs, and stuff like that. So it was a moment of pause, but also a moment that allowed me and many of my clients and my family to launch ourselves with a lot of zest and joy when we were finally able to be outside and pursue certain dreams that maybe we had on hold,
Yeah.
and go to certain places and make time for ourselves and our friends when we were able to do so.
For sure. I think the world needed a pause in a big way. And I think the illumination on mental health is a big deal because it seemed like before that there was this mentality that people just need to get over it. But I don't think they realize that it's like having something that would afflict an organ in your body.
Mhm.
It's deeper than that.
Mhm. Right. And one of the things is like you have to get over it, but you can get over it and jump over it and disassociate and forget it and file it in the back, but still open. So when you
Yeah.
look at mental health, I like to use the example of when you have your laptop and it's open, you have a lot of different tabs and you have the tab for Target and you have to refill medication. You're trying to maybe see when tickets are going to be on sale to go to a specific place. That's exactly the same way that your brain is managing things. Your brain is managing your day to day, or the goals, the list, the responsibilities. But there are tabs that are open also when there are challenging events or there are a specific gap on skills that shows up every time that you have interactions at work or with your family, whether it is stuff that has to do with emotional regulation, what has to do with your level of assertiveness, your ability to communicate well. All those tabs with those gaps are still open and creating data. And the data would be, oh, I get very nervous when I speak in public, or I get very angry when I remember these things that happened to me, or I wake up with somatic, which is like a symptom, right? When you wake up with somatic signs of, I have headaches, I have migraines, I have, my jaw is really clenched, I feel really heavy and tension on my shoulders. And you're like, but everything is fine. Well, everything is fine right this second, but it could be that while you were growing up, while you were attending schools and pursuing on how to build the life that you have now, things happened that you're still carrying that are not yours to carry anymore. So
Yeah.
when you do this work in mental health and wellness and this pursue on, let me reprocess these things so I can release them. Let me analyze the narrative that I have around myself. Let me also make inventory around my relationships and my family. What level of reciprocity do I have in relationships? And does that still serve me, right? A lot of us
Yeah.
are raised to be people pleasers. We are the helpers. We were the really mature for our age ones, right? Because we were given all these responsibilities due to our family's circumstances. And when you do this inventory and you sit and say, does this still work for me? Is this the way that I want to show up in the world every day? Even though
Yeah.
I've done this for many years, decades, I can always make the choice to show up and say, Kay doesn't do that anymore. Or this doesn't serve me anymore. Or I can strengthen myself to have conversations around, I know we have been interacting like this for all of our lives together as friends, as partners. This doesn't work for me anymore. So I am updating you so that you know who I am becoming, right? So
Yeah.
it's not so much about scorch and burn, new friends only, but it is like strengthening ourselves in our vocabulary, in our ability to communicate, so we can have these conversations that could be challenging with the people in our lives so that they understand that there has been a shift, that there are other things that we're pursuing and how they can be also contributors in our companions in this new journey.
So if I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day and one of the kids curiously looked up and said, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you answer that child?
So I love those opportunities. I actually do that. I volunteer extensively in different schools and with different organizations, and career days are my favorite, especially
Yeah.
if they're little kids. Um, the label that I use for myself to describe myself is actually the mental health engineer. So by training, I am a psychotherapist. By specialty, I am a psychotherapist that specializes on the treatment of complex trauma, PTSD, and immigrational trauma. But the way that I describe myself to the kids and when I'm doing presentations is I am the mental health engineer. And they're like, oh my God, what does that mean? And I was like, well, an engineer, right, by description, is somebody that creates systems or optimizes systems, right? They review machinery, they review processes, they verify the materials for the stuff they're building, and they make it better. So they make it more efficient, they make it, to do things faster, they make it things with more ease. So that's what I do. So I meet with people, and I'm the mental health engineer. So I help them put the pieces back together, or sometimes take things apart and reconstruct them so they can be in tune and aligned with the life that they want to live. Right.
Yeah.
So I say, what do you do? So they're little. So I'm like, oh, so what do you do? I was like, well, we go to my office, or sometimes we meet virtually, and we figure out in the core of the person, what do they want and what do they need? And then we work together in them achieving the ability to give themselves permission to go and get it,
That's
right? So
wonderful.
we
Yeah.
make people feel better, but also we help people do better, right? We help people upgrade their skills so they stop betraying themselves, right? In many circumstances, we betray ourselves in our jobs, in our relationships, doing things that are not part of our contract, they're not part of our deliverables, right? Because we don't have good boundaries, because we don't have a centeredness around what our values are right now, not necessarily what they were before. And sometimes we have that certainty, but we just don't have a way to communicate that in a way that does not create more conflict and more mayhem.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I help people look at their lives, see what works, what doesn't work, release those things, upgrade some things in order for them to have more joy and more time to do the things that they really like.
What did you want to be in the third grade?
So since I was little, I wanted to be a psychotherapist.
Okay. All right. So you're living the dream.
This is what I wanted to do. I was really good at, I talked a lot, so they always had to move me. So talking is my jam, right?
Yeah.
So when I was little, they was like, she's really smart, but she talks a lot. So they always had to move me. I wanted to talk to everybody. As I kept growing up, even when I was outside, taking the bus, taking the subway, people would sit next to me. And by the time my stop came, they had told me their whole lives. I just brought that sense of, I don't know if it was peace or connection to people that they organically just told me things. And I was always really interested in people's stories. Like I could hear stories for hours and I always ask for, clarification. And then what happened? And then how did you feel? So it has always been who I was. I did not pursue psychotherapy as my career because when I grew up, my dad said I was going to die of hunger. So that was not a job. And he was not wrong about it. We're talking about 35 years ago. Mental health was really low in the totem pole as far as the things that people could invest money in, or even that people pursue as a career. Eventually, as an adult learner, I was able to transition from my background in corporate business and law. I was able to transition into psychotherapy, go back to grad school, and eventually pursue my doctorate. So that's what I've been doing for more than a decade. So I found my way back to psychotherapy because it was the thing that I love and that I was really good at.
So
So
who's been
my dream came true at the end.
100% it did. So who's been a hero for you or inspiration in your life?
Um, Heroes for me are people that have not accepted the cards that they have been dealt. So a big hero in my life is my father. He was dealt very challenging cards, being born as a Black man in poverty, didn't have a lot of access to education, but he worked really hard, but also really smart. So, and he was able to build a life for himself and his family. He was able to put I am of Dominican descent, so I'm Hispanic of Dominican descent from the Dominican Republic. There's a very big sense of responsibility for not only your immediate family, but the family of your wife. So my dad put all of my mother's siblings, which was a bunch of them, through college and for them to have a good career. So he built, even though he came from the space of scarcity and poverty, right, in a country that was still developing under dictatorship, a lot of political upheaval, my father was able to find his way into providing for his immediate family and eventually for many parts of his community, with this sense of pride, hard work, smart work in the pursuit of high level education. So he is, for me, my number one hero. And the everyday life, anybody that is determined to not accept the cards that they were dealt and is finding ways to resource themselves and connect to a bigger framework, a bigger network, for me is a hero. Whoever is trying to build a life that has never been built in their bloodline, right? Is somebody that is a hero to me, regardless of where they are in the process. I work specifically with high achievers, so people that work in some of the top industries in the country or that attend in some of the highest pressure academic environments, and that was a way for them to get there. But I am also really adamant about highlighting that the only difference between high achievers and people that had high potential was the lack of opportunities, right? So there are all these people and people are, oh, they're so special, they have so much talent, they're outliers. But the reality is that there was a particular investment of time or a particular chance that was given, or somebody got an interest in them and put them in a path that was different. And a lot of people that are really, really high potential haven't had the same opportunities. And that is the difference in the outcomes. So I don't believe so much on giftedness. I have seen very naturally gifted people, but I also know the value of hard work, support, network, and mentorship in helping somebody that has high potential and it has skills find their way into a life that they can be proud of and a life that is a life of purpose.
So if you can meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating or interesting and spend a little time with them, who would that be?
Oh, so many people. I always love to be surrounded by people. There is somebody that I have learned of and also was able to meet in person that in the place in my life where I am right now, it is somebody that's really inspiring for me. Her name is Rachel Cargill, and she is all of the things. She is a female businesswoman. She's a multimillionaire. She's a philanthropist. She's a writer, and she's also a thought leader. And the thing that I love about Rachel Cargill is that not only has she built her brand and her companies to be in tune with who she is, but also to cater and provide services and almost like a point of view for a lot of people so that they can find their own path. One of the greatest examples of who she is and what she does is it was her birthday, and people like to give people that are, very important and very well known, they like to give them gifts. And instead of receiving things, because she feels like I have everything already, she created from her page, nothing fancy. She created a fundraiser, and she said because she had taken time for therapy and she had the privilege to be able to hire therapists to help her with her own situations and the loss of her mother, she really loved what therapy did for her. She was like, I want to create a fund, and whatever gift you guys give me for my birthday, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to pass it along for people that do not have insurance and need therapy. And she did this in a very casual kind of way. And this morphed into a multi-million-dollar foundation that's called the Love Land Foundation, which provides free therapy vouchers, 5 to 6 vouchers per person, and it can be extended and pays therapists in the communities their full fee. So it's not asking the therapist, oh, do this pro bono, or let's help these people. Or it's not like telling the people, oh, pay all this money. She found a way to create value by allowing for these two communities to find and work themselves and work together. So she believes like philanthropy can start right now, regardless of your budget, your worth is not something you have to prove to anybody. Show up for yourself. So I have spent time with her in certain conferences that I've gone to, but I would love to spend more time definitely with Rachel Clark. She is a rock star.
So you have to give good advice to people. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
I think the best advice I ever gotten was not advice that I verbally received. And the best advice I ever gotten was more by modeling behavior. And it goes back to my father again. My father never asked of me anything that he was not willing to do for himself. Right. And it is something that I carry with myself, even in raising my own daughters, even as they were going to very competitive schools and doing programs that were very, very academically demanding. I was always in the trenches with them. I went back as an adult student, pursue my graduate degree as they were doing their own homework. They were studying for the SSAT, which is the test that they do for prep schools. I was studying for my boards to get my, all of my, be able to practice clinical social work by myself. They are pursuing certain degrees. I am pursuing my doctoral degree. So it's like putting your skin in the game
Yeah.
and modeling with your behavior what you're asking other people to do. Even with my clients, right? I have one-on-one clients. My one-on-one clients for therapy is closed, so I don't have space for that. I also do intensives in a modality called EMDR in my offices in Manhattan, New York, and in Cary, North Carolina. But even as a provider, I push myself to do the thing that I'm asking my clients to do. So if you think about it, for a living, I ask people to do terrifying things every day. Terrifying things. Speak up, create boundaries with your mother-in-law, reprocess your trauma, become a better mother in order to mother your children by mothering yourselves. I always ask for things that are terrifying. So I don't give myself the space where I don't also push myself to do terrifying things. I
Yeah.
am going to have a TED Talk on April 12th. And it's a terrifying endeavor to one, apply many times, be chosen, then you have to write this thing, and now you have to deliver it in person without notes. So terrifying things, but I don't give myself the space not to continue to do those things that one, bring value to the community, but also take me out of my comfort zone, because that's what I ask people to do every day. So the best lesson that I have learned, and it was by watching my father, is don't ask for the thing that you're unwilling to do, not from your family, not for your children, but also don't ask from other people to treat you in a particular way in which you're already not treating yourself. If I'm already not respecting my own self, how can I demand respect of other people? If I'm already not working, it's always a journey, right? It's not like you get to, I'm going to love myself unconditionally, and it never changes as your body changes, as you get older, as you have children. All of these different changes that we experience biologically, it's an ongoing journey to love yourself. But how can you demand of somebody else loving you when you're not doing the ongoing work to love yourself and accept yourself, while also holding the space for I can improve,
Yeah.
right? All this stuff that I get, I can improve my skills. I can upgrade my skills. I can outsource things. I can ask for advice. I deserve support and ease, right?
Yeah.
So when it has to do with that, I think that's one of the most important things.
It's like with kids, when they watch you, they model what you do. You can say anything you want. You can talk
Mhm.
all day long, but
Right.
when they see you do the thing, that's it.
Mhm.
That's the proof.
Right, and the way that we talk about ourselves, right? I am very big, and when I am speaking and doing presentations with adults, sometimes I do workshops where I work with a lot of the top universities in the country, a lot of the prep schools, boarding schools, especially like high schools that have like this high pressure, top academic type of programs. And I talk a lot to the parents about the fact that generationally, we have kept our kids in the dark, right? So we don't tell our kids when we apply for a job and we don't get it. We don't tell our kids when, our boss is a jerk and disrespected us in a meeting. We don't tell them when we take a test, if you're trying to go to grad school or a text for your next certification. We don't tell them when we fail. When our parents pass away, right? Historically, your parents, my parents, there's a big change now with the generation that's younger. They would just hide it. They would cry in private. Maybe the dads start drinking a little more, going out more with the friends. We never know what that feels like and how to behave. So when it happens to us, when these young kids don't get the job, when they get laid off, when the dream school does not accept them, they lose their minds. They don't have the emotional regulation because they haven't seen somebody that they admire and is tasked with protecting them dealing with that.
Yeah.
When I have issues, I cry with my kids. When I don't get the job and somebody is chosen, I share it with them and I process it and I say, well, this is what I'm going to do differently next time. Not in a way of parentifying. Your kids are not your therapist. Your best friends shouldn't be your therapist. I always say, best friends don't let their best friends be their therapist. That is somebody's job. Okay. Buy a journal. Don't come here venting to me. If there is an issue, I need to remain neutral, right? And that's what you have an outside party do it. But we have to push ourselves to show our kids what bills are. Our kids should know how much money we have in the bank. Oh, we're going to make them so nervous. No, we're not going to make them so nervous. They have to be aware of the reality so they know it's overnight summer camp a thing. Should I buy those Ugg boots for $150? Right? What are
Yeah.
the priorities, right? We have to have conversation for our kids. And a lot of the younger kids don't have an appropriate model because people that are 50, we were not raised to show our emotions in a way that were constructive. Everything was a big secret. There was
Yep.
always three different versions of reality. In our kids, we have shielded them from so much that many times they're unable to navigate the real world where they're not so special, where not everybody's going to get a trophy, where your boss is not necessarily your best friend, where you go to work, it's not a family, it's a business. That's why they pay you.
Yeah.
Because work is hard and there is
Yeah.
a deliverable. That's why they pay you. Otherwise, everybody will go to work for free, right?
Mhm.
So talking to our kids and sharing some of the things that we have been through in ways that are appropriate, but also the way that we navigate the world. Many times we don't know how to do conflict resolution because in many of our backgrounds, when there is a problem, we have to fight. I'm going to jump you. We're going to throw hands, right? We haven't seen somebody escalate issues in ways that is constructive, right? There is an issue in the airport all the time. In the airport, somebody's fighting. The police has to come take him out of the plane because they fought it because the flight was canceled. You have to have the vocabulary to say, ma'am, what is your name? And I need your employee number. And what is your supervisor? And the supervisor cannot fix it. I'm going to escalate with corporate. Somebody's going to be responsible for that. It doesn't mean I'm going to lose my mind, dysregulate myself, mess up the whole trip, and then on top of that, become a TikTok viral sensation. When
Yeah.
you walk down the aisle, say, oh, that's the guy that lost his mind. Remember, that's the guy in the McDonald's, right? We
Yeah.
haven't seen that. But the most important thing is for us to acknowledge that everything we don't have, we can go get it.
Yeah.
So it could be that your parents, you look back and it was like, your parents didn't give me everything that I needed. They did the best that they could, but what they could do was not enough. I have gaps on my emotional system. I have gaps on my self-esteem. I have gaps on me showing my emotions to others or being assertive or becoming a people pleaser or always thinking that I have to do the most, right? If you were raised by parents that said, work hard and look down, that does not position you very well to be a leader, to be
Yeah.
promoted.
Yeah.
That positions you for you to be a worker bee until you have to retire and miss out on promotions, on time off, on perks, right? We can come to terms with all of those things and look at it from the perspective of, I don't have that, and I can address that, and I can learn ways how to release that, right? And how much this hurt me. But I can also give myself the permission to upgrade my skills on this particular thing because your body, your physical body, and your relationships are going to give you the data that you need so that you know what to address. If
Yeah.
you're doing a presentation and you always get nervous, if you're in a meeting and you never talk, if they're taking a picture of your team and you're always trying to go to the back, like they can barely see the top of your head, maybe I have some issues with self-esteem. Maybe I'm having some issues in the way that I present myself and navigate the space at work. Maybe I need to upgrade my outfits. Maybe I need to get some styling tips. Maybe I need to, there's always that space for growth when you allow yourself to say, I am not permanently damaged.
Right.
So, right, Kate is not anxious when she speaks with people. Kate feels anxiety. when she has to talk with others. So maybe Kay needs to start listening to some podcasts, right, about public speaking. Maybe read this book. Maybe if you're feeling frisky, you go, join Toastmasters. You can fix the thing. It's not something that makes you permanently damaged or
Yep.
something that you have to hold on forever. You can make the choice to say, who knows how to do this? Where is this knowledge? Where is this group?
Yeah.
After you forgive yourself of not knowing that. If you have never played golf, you don't go into the golf course and start crying, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm broken. Forget about me. I don't know how to play golf. No, you go buy yourself some golf shoes. You figure out who has the cheapest lessons, right? Maybe you go on Facebook Marketplace, find a set of goals. If you're fancy and you have money like that, you go get measure, all of the things. But you don't torture yourself about the thing that you don't know because nobody taught you how to do it or it was not within your access. You simply go get training, get lessons, get support.
Yeah.
And that should apply to everything else. We have to start looking at things from that perspective of, I don't know it, right? But I can figure it out. I can give
Absolutely.
myself the space, and it never has to be from 0 to 100, right? So I'm going to go from 0 to 100, from being super reserved or too talkative, okay? Because these are two extremes. I'm going to become this person by next week. No, maybe I talk too much. Maybe I talk about stuff that nobody cares about. Maybe I have become, I turn around and I'm the clown of the office or the clown of my group of friends, and that doesn't serve me anymore. I can say, okay, I acknowledge that. Let me see how I can get more comfortable with being quiet. Let me see how I can become more comfortable in my internal talks, not having to be the center of attention or the center of the party. What can I do to get better at that so that other people have the space to also shine and it doesn't become the show of K?
Yeah.
The same thing is when you're very introverted or you prefer your space and all of that. I'm going to go to the happy hour for work and I'm going to go for 30 minutes. And then I'm going to give myself the permission to leave. I don't have to be the belle of the ball and stay there until 9:30 and drink the last drink. Stretching for me means I'm going to go for 30 minutes. A minute 35, I'm going to start saying my goodbyes. By minute 40, I'm back in the subway in my car driving home. That is good enough. But it's like that stretching, right?
Yep.
A little bit at a time, moving more closer to balance and to the thing that now makes sense for you based on where you're trying to go next and how you're trying to feel, but also make others feel in your presence.
So of all the things you've done in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I think what I'm most proud of is my children.
Yeah.
My children, because we took a very unconventional route as far as what everybody else was doing regarding people that were within my same level of income and background. We took a very different route for them to be able to have opportunities in independent schools. There is the National Association of Independent Schools in the United States that oversees all the private independent schools in the country. They have really good programs that prepare you for college and for life. So we took the very different route from a lot of our friends, so people in our neighborhood, and it took a lot of sacrifices, a lot of investment, but it provided us with some of our best friends, some of their best mentors, and it has allowed me to raise them into the wonderful young women that they are, with a lot of options, with a lot of things to bring to the world, and with a very specific network where they have been able to share their talents and their gifts. One of the biggest compliments as a mother that I have received was my little one was going to a school, and a school that has been around since the 1800s. All these schools have been around forever. And one of her teachers wrote something, and I think is the best compliment that I've received as a mother. And I saved it and I even put it in a little frame. And he said, my daughter was a seventh grade at that time. So she was 12 years old. And the teacher said that she had, give me a second.
You bet.
That she had the most incredible moral compass that he has ever seen on a young child.
Wow.
So for me, when he said that, it was not about grades, right? We can always compete on grades, on accolades, but for me, the biggest compliment I have ever received is that I have raised really good children, very strong young women, that bring value to the world.
Yeah.
So they are successful, they are well placed, they went to wonderful colleges, have found really amazing group of friends. But for me, what really touches my heart and is my greatest achievement is the fact that I have raised girls that bring value to society and that are very self-assured and aware of their personal value and gifts.
That's wonderful. So if anyone does want to hire you, reach out, learn more about you, anything about your world, how can they do that?
They can reach out to me on kdsimone.com. It is a website that has all my offerings when it has to do with speaking, with institutional trainings, and also has resources for people that are looking for therapists. I mean, I am fully aware that people will not be able to work with me. 99% of the people will be able to work with somebody else, but it will give them the skills so that they can find an appropriate provider, somebody that's culturally competent, that is specialized in the things that they want to work on, and that also is going to allow them to work towards that life of ease and of clarity that they're pursuing. I also have a book coming up in November that I'm working on. It's a book aimed towards high achievers and the stressors of high achievers. And I will be participating in podcasts. I have my TED Talk next week. So I will be around just to provide, light and guidance on how you can start building a life that feels better and that is in tune with the desires that you have in your heart.
I love it. Kay, thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything. Best of luck with the book.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Take care.